The question was, if I could choose again, would I choose this? You know, I sat there and I think I journaled for 4 or 5 pages because the honest answer wasn't yes in simple terms. Not because I had made wrong decisions, not because I had stopped choosing what I was building for in my career. You know, what I did is I was chasing expectations, chasing momentums, and what made sense really on paper. And that's not the version of me that I wanted to be shown every day. What I was looking for is the version of me that was showing up every day, confident, decisive, and always moving, and very much real. Marhaban, how's it going, everyone? And welcome back to Yuwab, where we go deep on things that shape how you lead and how you live and how you feel about these two things. I'm your host, Saeed Alghafri. If you're new, thank you so much for joining. And I'm very grateful for my usual guests for spending the time with me. This podcast exists because I believe that the best investment you can ever make is understanding yourself. And I want to play a big role in that for you. Before we begin, if you haven't rated my show or shared it, please do that. It just takes few seconds. Just go into Apple Podcast, Spotify, or YouTube, wherever you're listening to me right now. It just takes 2 seconds, and it really means a lot for my shows. It would reach more people, and it would support me and also support others. Today's episode is one that you would be like, oh my God. You would be like, is this really for real? You may think it's traditional sense of a burnout, but it's actually one step before you become burned out. It's actually that moment when you kind of take a step to the side, as if you're taking yourself away from your body, and you watch your life once again. It's like watching your life. But now you are very much observing. You look back and you realize, is that the person that I want to be? You look at the decisions you made, answering those emails, sitting in those meetings, and you would feel like, is this the person I want to be? And that's exactly what we are going to unpack in today's episode. So let's dive deep. Burnout doesn't really happen all at once. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I've completely lost it. It just happens quietly and very slow. Through hundreds of small adjustments. You soften your opinions in a meeting because the room is not really ready to hear you. You say yes to everything and anything, even if it doesn't really align with yourself. You know why? Because the pressure is really high. You push down the discomfort because there is no time for you to deal with it. You perform energy you don't have because people are just watching you. And each time you tell yourself it's just this one time, but it isn't, It becomes very much a pattern, and the pattern becomes your identity. And at some point, you look back and realize and ask yourself, where did I stop saying what I actually think? And when did I start running at a pace that is too very much tiring? And when did I become so good at performing and not being myself? You know why this is important? Because most people who feel this way don't name it as a problem. They name it as a success, as being productive, as being respected, and they really move forward. But internally, they are running on a version of not themselves at all, a version shaped by what is expected, how are they rewarded, and what keep things smooth. And that's really not good because that's not the authentic you. And you know what the cost is? Decisions that really don't feel like yourself. Yes, you may hit the targets, but your relationships would feel very much transactional. Your success feels very much hollow. Really great from the outside when you look at it, but it feels slightly off from the inside. What happens is the longer you leave it untackled, the further you drift and the harder it becomes. And then you would say hello to burnout, and you don't want that. Let me share with you a few daily examples that we see in our life. Do you remember the time when you push so hard back in meetings, when you inquired about everything, when you engaged heavily? But now you wait to see the way the room goes, and then you go with that. Even sometimes the meeting finishes and you forget to leave because you're just there. Do you remember the time when you used to protect your weekends? You go out on family dinners, play paddle with friends. Now you check your emails on a Friday, not without even thinking about it. It becomes just automatic. Or sometimes you would have an opinion about the strategy of the company. And now you just execute and say, what the heck? Let me just do it. Or the times when you used to laugh very much often and you think about the things beyond performance. You may be thinking on the surface, this looks like maturity, as if this is how leaders really act. I can tell you it's complete BS because you are very much drifting without the awareness that this is becoming your new identity. And you know, people really know that. So stop pretending that you are smarter than everyone. Let me share with you real stories that I have encountered in my life. All of us hear stories about leaders who lead, or even witness or observe how they do that. I know someone who's also very much of a friend. He's a senior director, not the sharpest and not even the smartest that I've known, but was very much known for the ability to listen. Oh my God, the way he listens is just remarkable, and he does it really very well. Anyone really can speak to this person. And when it comes to patience, the guy is really master in conducting that, and he can even give master classes. Deep inside, he had this darker side, and all of us have that dark side. And I'll explain that. But he was controlling it very much. Over the years, you know what happened? He started climbing the corporate ladder, which is amazing. All of us want to do that. But the guy started shifting and drifting. He had spent so much time adjusting to what the organization needed him to do. And he stopped knowing what he actually wanted. In meetings, this person, because he was telling me that, he didn't really believe anyone else. He just believed his own opinion. What matters is basically what he thought about. He brought new people in to the extent that no one is good enough, and I want basically to run the way I should be running. It's my way. And he thought that those people would really tally. And any current initiative, anything that was happening was not really good enough for him. He was seeking external opinions from people who really did not understand the culture. Yeah, maybe they were knowledgeable, but when it comes to performing that in the company that he was in, it wasn't really good. You know what happened? One day he spoke to me and I asked him a simple question. I was like, what do you actually think about this direction? Because I know this guy very well. You know what happened? He paused for a very long minute. He didn't say anything. Then he replied with something that really stayed with me. You know, he told me, honestly, I really don't know anymore what I want. And then he went to saying, I cannot lead people anymore. I've been adapting for so long, I can't even tell the difference. The guy really was not broken. He was successful in every external measure. I can even bet on that. But he drifted so far from himself. And to the point that, he got sick very much often and he was hospitalized. God forbid that doesn't happen to you. And everyone around this person felt very sorry for him, including myself, to the point that I was like, you know what, this guy just want to be sick all his time. So you know what, it's up to him. But reality is, what happened eventually is the culture of the business got really ruined. And I don't want to tell you what happened to the guy. But what happened is this guy almost reached that burnout and he got burnout. But he didn't listen to his body. And the damage was very severe on the business. The second story is very much personal. There was a time in my career, and I'm not going to tell you that, where I very much woke up in the morning and I did not recognize very much my values. I always have my values and my purpose written, and I always remember those. But this period of the time, I did not really notice those values and purpose. I was at a point where most of the people who saw me from the outside were telling me, Saeed, you're very, very much successful. But deep inside, I was very much demotivated. I'm one of those guys who really don't mind work and pressure. But I was running on kind of a tag where I did not have a purpose. I would go home and still check my emails. I had thoughts running in my mind where it was telling me things are not going very well, and I had to basically be on top of it. But one day, I couldn't really take it. I sat down with myself and I love really to journal. And I asked myself a very simple question that I was very much avoiding. The question was, if I could choose again, would I choose this? I sat there and I think I journaled for 4 or 5 pages because the honest answer wasn't yes in simple terms. Not because I had made wrong decisions, not because I had stopped choosing what I was building for in my career. What I did is I was chasing expectations, chasing momentums, and what made sense really on paper. And that's not the version of me that I wanted to be shown every day. What I was looking for is the version of me that was showing up every day, confident, decisive, and always moving, and very much real. But it was very much incomplete when I journaled. But that morning, I remember, yes, it was uncomfortable, but it was the clearest answer that I wanted to have at that moment. You know why? Because I did give it a name, even just to myself. And that was the first step to change. From these stories and whatever I learned, these are 3 key elements so that you can find yourself back and avoid burnout. The first thing is name the drift before you try to even fix it. What happened is most of us just jump into fixing, and that's not really good. The first thing that you should do is acknowledge it and name it. Let me tell you what most of us do when we have a problem. The first thing is we just avoid it. We avoid everything and anything because we think we are not really ready for it. And we just delay it and delay it and delay it. So ask yourself honestly, is this the person I am today? Is this the person I wish to become? Honestly, write it down. The act of naming it gives you something to work with. So just name it for now and don't rush into changing. The second thing is separate performance from identity. You are really not your role at work, and you are not the output. There is a person and values underneath all of yourself, and that person needs attention. Not once a year or a retreat like companies. Most companies, they go into a retreat once a year, thinking that they can fix basically what happened. It should be very much regular and do that yourself. Companies do it, but we always ignore ourselves and have small practices, quiet times, where you can have honest conversations with yourself on whom you want to actually be in your life. The third thing is make one decision that is entirely yours. What I'm trying to say here is don't just leave your current job. You need it for the time being. What I'm asking you to do is focus on yourself. Your job right now is very important. You've got a family to take care of, and you need to take care of yourself. You may have some liabilities. What I'm asking you to do is start small to do something for yourself. One decision even once a week. And that is not about performance, approval, or optimizing a current process that you have in the company. It's really something that reflects what you actually value and what you intend to become. It may sound simple, but it's really powerful when you do it. But for people who have drifted, it can feel almost very much radical. That feeling is the compass that you want. So follow it. And that's the discomfort that you want, which will really change your life. Now, as we reflect from today's episode, I really want you to ask yourself these questions and sit with it for a while. The first question is, when did you last make a decision that had nothing to do with work and had to do with yourself? The second question is, what have you stopped saying very much loud that you still believe in it privately? And if people who knew you 10 years ago, or let's say 5 years ago, met you today, what would they notice in you? And lastly, what version of yourself are you performing? And what version have you been hiding? Sit down with this, write it down, because trust me, awareness is the first thing that you want to do if you want to change, and it's not really weakness. And as we end, what I want you to basically start recognizing is yourself, and don't think of it as a one-time event in terms of sitting with yourself and starting that awareness process. It's very much a practice. The world we live in is very much demanding. The roles will always be very much demanding and they will have high expectation. The pressure will always be real. But none of that has to cost you the thread back to yourself. The most grounded leaders that I have ever met, the ones that lead with clarity and genuine authority, are not the ones who have never drafted. They are the ones who notice when they do and find their way back. So here's what I want to leave you with today. The day you stop recognizing yourself is not the end of anything and everything. It's just a signal. It's your deeper self asking you to pay attention. So slow down to look inward and ask honest questions. You don't really have to reinvent yourself. You just have to come back to the current moment. All right? And my usual request, please rate my show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. And don't forget to share this episode. Think of it as an act of gratitude. Very much powerful that people will thank you for it. Thank you so much for being with me on Yuwab. And until next time, stay very much grounded and be honest with yourself. All right? مع السلامة.